So to continue, let me introduce our last speaker, who will be talking about lighting UP Museum learning using an extensionist torch. This will be given by Dr. Aimee Lynn B. Dupo. She is a Professor 10 and UP Scientist 2 at the Institute of Biological Sciences, College of Arts and Sciences, UPLB. She is also the UPLB Museum of Natural History's curator for moths and spiders. Ames obtained her PhD in entomology in 2011, MS in entomology, minor in genetics in 2003, and BS Agriculture major in entomology back in 1999 from UPLB. She has communicated the results of her research through 43 refereed publications and 2 book chapters. In addition to that, she has described more than 52 new species of spiders and 22 species of rice block bugs. This year, she described 3 new species of jumping spiders in the Philippine Journal of Systematic Biology. Even with a busy schedule as University of the Philippines Faculty Regent, Dr. Dupo continues her advocacy in promoting arthropod diversity and conservation through public service activities of the UPLBB program, fostered partnerships with the Department of Science and Technology Science Education Institute. Here, she actively participates in creating content for STEM modules, learning activities, and science engagement. The advanced STEM module she develops, for instance, features topics such as entomology and environmental science. The modules are specially designed to help students discover and appreciate these STEM fields. Her passion for science and teaching about biodiversity earned her the Outstanding Young Scientist in 2015, Bato Balani Many Faces of a Teacher Award in 2017, and CAS Outstanding Extension Personnel in 2020. So let us watch this pre-recorded presentation from Dr. Aimee Dupo.
Magandang araw po sa ating lahat. Una po sa lahat, nais kong batiin na happy 45th anniversary ng UPLB Museum of Natural History. Humihingi po ako ng paumanhin na hindi ako makakadalo na virtually ngayon sa celebration dahil ako po ay nasa meeting din po kasabay nito. Pero dahil napakalaki ng memorya ko tungkol sa UPLB Museum of Natural History, hindi ko po pwedeng matanggihan ang imbitasyong makapagsalita sa harap ninyong lahat ngayong umaga. Siguro po, ang pinaka-maaga pong memorya ko about museums would be that I was 12 years old then, and my mom was a curator at the museum also, the UPLB Museum of Natural History. And she took us on a field trip along with the staff of the museum. I think it was a curator staff field trip to the National Museum. And that was my first encounter with a natural history museum. It was an amazing experience that was etched in my mind up until I began my work at the university officially as the University Extension Associate 1. But back then, I only had very little idea of how large the role of a museum, even if the Museum of Natural History dito po sa UPLB was just situated a few meters where I live. So it's unimaginable that the museum plays a huge part of my life now. And what I am today now is because of my experience of being a UPLB Museum University Extension Associate. Dito po ako natutong makisalamuha, makisama, makibagay, at makipag-usap sa mga tao. Dahil po bago ako naging guro sa university, I used to stutter and I couldn't even talk to a crowd na nahihiya po talaga ako. Kaya nga po, malaki ang utang na loob ko sa museum for giving me the training to become an extensionist, a teacher, a scientist, and also a science communicator. So fast forward to my work experience as a University Extension Associate, after a few more months, I realized that the museum is actually a melting pot of a lot of people, linkages, ideas, and extension workers are at the helm of it all. So isa sa mga importanteng driving force ng museum ay ang ating extension work. You see, museum extension work comes in many forms, but serves the critical responsibility of providing two essential things in lighting the path towards a culture of science in our country. So number one, it provides an avenue, or extension work provides an avenue for informal and formal learning. And number two, it provides a safe space for communicating science. So my talk for today will be looking at lighting up museum learning through an extensionist point of view. So my topic or talk for this morning would be lighting up museum learning as using an extensionist torch. So torch being light-bearing instruments. Ang torch ng isang extensionist leads the way towards learning. So I am Aimee. Kung hindi niyo pa po ako nakikilala, I'm also a curator at the Museum of Natural History and the faculty regent. So as a curator and as an extensionist, we try to make sense of specimens brought into the museum. We share our passion for insects and other arthropods through lectures, interviews, and trainings, and even in short courses. And then we also function in terms of updating the current knowledge on Philippine arthropods through research. I am an entomologist, kaya karamihan po ng examples ko would deal with arthropods. So what are museums all about? So ICOM defines the scope and responsibility of museums as permanent organizations in the service of its society. So it's very important that in the core of it all, it is about the service to the society. It promotes development. Museums are open to the public, which acquires, conserves, researches, and communicates and exhibits the tangible and intangible heritage of humanity in its environment for the purposes of education, study, and enjoyment. So we work with the mandate as a museum to bring nature closer to people and the people closer to nature. So just as the definition of the scope of the museum, ito po ang trabaho natin sa museum. And as an extensionist, it is also important to know that from then until now, museums are also considered to be important institutions that provide our community outreach activities through extension activities like biological identification services, biological information services, training seminars, workshops, and symposia. What we do is the items or the materials that we use for our extension activities are science-based. So that means even if we are doing extension work, we have to do our research too. So there is a creative and systematic effort to contribute and enrich the body of knowledge through research activities. Because we are curators also, and extensionists, it's also our responsibility to document and make a conscious effort to keep a record of evidence of the existence of living things. Kaya nga po, we are curators, caretakers of the tangible heritage of our culture. We also provide information and extension services. In the core of it all, we provide the community outreach activities because part of the extension activities is that museums also serve as a venue for the acquisition of knowledge, skills through experience, study, or being taught. So there are many ways to learn in the museum. During face-to-face conditions, you go to the museum, you view the exhibits, you read the labels, and that is also a form of informal learning. And if there is an extensionist around, you can also ask him or her or they to explain to you what the exhibit is all about. And that is also part of extension work. Museums nowadays, or in the new normal, make an important extension shift from implicit, normally we're in the background, to explicit. So now we're moving to the forefront. With limited face-to-face gatherings, it is a museum's extension activities that now connect natural history with the general public. So why do the migration? Why bother to move virtually or to reach out to the public? So in terms of sharing information and developing a culture of science, when other people are sharing it, we must be able to take responsibility to provide the public with good science-based information also. we have to allow people to change views in terms of, with insects, we try to change the views of people in terms of insects being friends or foes. So because everyone is in the business of science, we have to be able to cultivate a culture of science, whether it's in face-to-face condition and now in the new normal, virtually. So we take it upon ourselves as extension individuals to provide science-based information to the general public, because the public deserves that. We deserve scientists communicating with the general public. And that is through extension work. So how do we do this? We take a snapshot. We look at what is already existing. Are there misconceptions that need to be corrected? Are there interests that need to be cultivated? And we also monitor activity patterns so that we could hit them while the attention is there. So for instance, a misconception. So normally when people look at bugs, they generally call them as assassin bugs or kissing bugs and already think that these are enemies. So we try to correct as extensionists misleading posts that are being posted in social media so that we correct the impressions of the public of these insects. We also provide some useful information online through interest groups. We identify which are friends, which are foe, and provide additional information on the roles of these insects in the ecosystem. So we're trying to change perceptions of people regarding natural history, one arthropod at a time. So you have to be able to put yourself out there to be able to initiate scientific citizenship. So that is also part of what extensionists do. So we provide information in the form of the availability of our curators. Even the general public is encouraged to provide information. At the same time, we also receive information from the general public and from our curators and specialists. So we put them all together and communicate the science that we do. So our destinations are usually determined by our activities. So before the pandemic started, the Museum of Natural History was already very active in tapping the curators, our extension personnel, our extension staff, in going either to the communities. For example, Romblon, we have the late James Alvarez teaching students, teachers in Romblon on how to set up misnets. And we have our curator here for insects, Dr. Jessamine Adorada, establishing rapport with the public, with our trainees from the DENR. And we watch them learn and teach each other what they have learned from these trainings or these workshops. So we miss a lot of field work, yung paglabas-labas, pakikipag-usap, muni-muni ng mga karanasan sa field. Namimiss din po namin yan as extension personnel. But lalo na po ito, we also establish linkages with the DOST Science Education Institute through Ma'am Ruby. Sa din po siya sa magsasalita ngayong araw na to. Kami po ay very much active in training students in pursuing STEM careers through the NULAB bus. So we make modules for students in high school to be able to learn what scientists do. And following the pandemic, hindi na po namin magagamit yung bus, but we use the bus in developing also learning materials wherein the students can now experience science even in their homes. So ito po yung Tuklas Siyensya, also alongside with DOST Science Education Institute. Ngayon din po, part of our extension activities in Arthropod would be putting or setting up activities for kids, yung virtual learning. So nagkakaroon na po tayo ng virtual learning workshops. This one is for kids. This is a bug safari. Ang ating mga estudyante dito, ang ages po nila is from 5 to 12 years old and learn about insects online. Forward, we also have had workshops, but this time it's also virtual workshops dealing with our insect training, birds, bird biodiversity, fungal biodiversity, and also plant biodiversity. Ang tinuturuan naman po natin dito ay ang mga guro. So we have never stopped as a museum to continue doing extension work because we value bringing science to the public. And our public are ages 5 to SAWA. So it's an ageless activity to promote both informal and formal learning through the museum. Again, we are thankful for all of the linkages we established with the Biology Teachers Association, with Eco Explorations. This allow us to expand our extension activities even more. Nakakapagod po dahil marami pong exposure, but it is a fulfilling experience to be able to share the knowledge kasi as a scientist, we forget that we communicate with the public even more. We tend to become busy communicating with our peers through publications, through conferences, but we forget about the importance of extension services in communicating the science that we do to the public that we answer to. And we also know or get to know the peak activity of our clients, our stakeholders. If we know the popular times they log on, if we know the peak days from which they check out our social media pages, we can now provide them interesting information during the time that they are most active. So those are just some of the strategies by which we cross the border in reaching our public. So some of the things that I have learned through the pandemic is that making posts through social media is very important for public engagement. So I try to take pictures of as many insects as possible here at home and share as much information in a concise manner. So no more than 3 sentences. So we share scientific information, tidbits of information through social media. So these are examples of insect. This is a blue-banded bee. This is a wasp, Asculiid wasp. So you notice also the comments in the post that establishes public engagement. So we answer it so that the recipients or the commentators for the post get to realize that they're talking to actual scientists. So this would be a sarcophagid fly, larvae of Alimacodid. So we try to provide as many information in a concise manner so that this would just be serving as photo essays. So we also get to introduce to the public new discoveries, new observations, even biological observations, how species interact with one another, predation, some concepts in ecology. We also introduce that through our posts. So instead of now going to a museum physically wherein you see bottled specimen, we can also bring museum information and museum learning through the photos and photo essays we share in social media. So this one is a spider, it's the one usually used for spider fights, but the attention here was more of on the red mite on this photo. And sometimes we associate popular pop culture with our photos like Darth Vader, Star Trek, Star Wars, just to initiate conversation with the general public. And some interesting forms. We try to use this also for introducing concepts like camouflage, mimicry. So our journey to citizenship will not be possible without good extension activities. But the good extension activities that we bring on would always be dependent on 3 things: baggage, passport, and map. So when we deal with baggage, we can only carry what we know. So we can only provide information to our extension services based on the research that we do, based on the field activities that we do, and based on the passion that we have. Passport is establishing trust is your identification. So we establish trust with our stakeholders, with the public, by being reachable. Extension personnel are mentors. We are teachers. We are science communicators. So trust is very important to us. And then a map, because public engagement will always dictate us where to go, what is needed, and what needs to be done. So again, I thank you everyone for listening to all my rants or to all my stories for this afternoon, and for this morning. I don't think the stories will ever end. As fulfilling as it is to conduct extension activities, it's also a record of all of my memories at the UPLB Museum of Natural History. So again, happy anniversary, Museum of Natural History.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Amy, for that very informative and inspiring talk. And thank you again to all the previous speakers. So let us now head straight to our open forum. Since we have limited time, we'll be accommodating a limited number of questions. So the first one entered here in the chat box is a comment for Dr. Cristobal. Thank you for the very inspiring lecture to engage our youth in science and prepare them for the future. Very nice video as well. Truly, we all can be instruments for making science and technology really for our people. Thumbs up as well to the OST. Say a warm regards to Dr. Joseph Pio as well. Again, another comment, with the limited movement of elementary and high school students during this time of pandemic, maybe we should encourage the science teachers to encourage the students to look into specimens they have at home, like the leaves of the kangkong malunggay they eat, and observe the difference in the fishes in their ulam. Ma'am, do you have a reaction to that, Dr. Cristobal?
Yes, that's a very good suggestion. Actually, you have been doing that, as Dr. Aimee has mentioned. The Tuklas Siyensya Season 1 that we had last year would have scientists on cam, same scientists who did the modules. And most of the activities that were shown are available. The materials are available in the homes. And for Season 2, we are more pandemic friendly this time. And the scientists were trained to do science vlogs, to shoot on their own, to do science video demonstrations in their homes. And we'll also, of course, encourage that our participants, our learners, who will also be there on demand po kasi yung ating mga modules. Plus, this will also be part of the DepEd Commons as we turn over at the end of the season all of our modules to the Department of Education for inclusion in their DepEd Commons. So in this modules, we encourage students to do as well their activities at home using materials like for biodiversity, they can also do that. And we also ran a science film exhibition online. And with that, we also develop modules at the international level. We have the Science Film Festival sponsoring a workshop which enables everyone in the Science Film Festival run. I think there are 39 countries. We contribute to developing the module. I create modules that are student-friendly, home-friendly, pandemic-friendly, because that is now the context by which we operate as educational institutions or even as government agencies. So yes, yes na yes. Pati po galunggong, ulam, tilapia. Pwede na po natin i-dissect bago kainin o bago iluto.
Thank you, ma'am. For Dr. Moran, we have a question. Any idea or broad assessment of how ready Philippine museums are in providing access to data for collections-based research? Like, for example, what % of the herbarium materials have been digitized already and are ready for sharing to those who would like to request for them? Thank you.
Thank you, Regina, for the question. I think it would depend from one institution to the other. Just like for UPLB, MNH, I think they're ready to share the collections through digitized specimens. And I'm speaking also as a curator of USTH. We have only started a few specimens because the equipment arrived at the start of the pandemic. So nag-work from home na kami, more of our students and also the staff of the research centers. So yung collections namin, yung digitization, medyo na hindi siya nag-continuous yung progress. So I can say that it will depend also kung depende sa manpower also no institution, wherein if you request for digitization or scanning of particular specimens, they can readily give into your request kung meron silang manpower. So may mga staff talaga and well-funded yung institution. So I think you have to check kung, especially yung mga may website, they can showcase naman nila doon yung collections nila, and if the specimens or the collections are already available digitally or meron silang mga exhibits.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering. So, for our part sa MNH, UPLB MNH, you will be learning more about our digitization efforts later sa part ng program. But seems like there are no more questions. Let me double check in the chat box. Okay. So, let us show our gratitude to our speakers. We would like to present our speakers with this electronic certificate of recognition. The certificate of recognition is awarded to first Jose Eleazar Arbersales as resource person during the UPLB Museum of Natural History's 45th founding anniversary celebration with the theme Museums in the New Normal, Their Role in Education, Research, and Extension, held on 30th of September 2021 from 9 a.m. to 12 noon via Zoom. Signed Director of MNH, Dr. Marian P. De Leon, and also to Ruby Cristobal, to Dr. Cecilia Moran, and last but not least to Dr. Aimee Lynn B. Dupo. Let us all give our speakers a big virtual round of applause. Thank you po. Thank you po sa inyo. So, and let me now turn you over again to our MC for the next part of our program. Salamat po.